Hi friends, you're watching Revenge by Larry. I'm just getting started, so if you enjoy the story, please subscribe, watch till the end, and leave a comment with your honest opinion. The navy suit felt like a uniform I didn't ask for. My hand was sweating on the brass handle outside the funeral home, and Tessa, my cousin, early 50s, stood so close she could have kicked my ankle if I said something dumb. I'm Nolan Pierce. I'm 56. I live in Roanoke, Virginia. And this was supposed to be my dad's funeral. Martin Pierce, the guy who raised me solo after Mom passed, who taught me to change a tire in the dark, who hugged me when I was 24, and barely making rent after college. Quick note: before we continue, share in the comments how's your day going and where are you joining from. And let's continue. Celeste blocked the doorway with one manicured hand. My stepmother. Barely that, honestly. They'd been married just under 3 years. Fresh blowout, no tear tracks, not even fake ones. Family only, she said like I was some caterer who wandered in through the wrong door. I am family. He's my father. She gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Was your father? I'm the wife? I decide how this goes. We're keeping it intimate. Behind her, I saw half the whole town piling in. Golf buddies, random cousins I barely remembered, even that woman from her Pilates group. But not me. You're kidding, I said and stepped forward. She didn't budge. Tessa slipped right past her and pulled me into a quick hug. Nolan, get in here. Celeste's jaw tightened, but before she could hiss anything, Dad's attorney Arturo Diaz stepped in from the side and said clear and firm, Mr. Pierce is listed for front row placement. Mr. Pierce is to be present at all memorial proceedings. She didn't argue. Just leaned in as I passed and whispered, enjoy the show. There won't be much left for Daddy's little hero. I sat in the front row, hands locked together, shoulders tight, with Tessa right at my elbow. People got up to speak, told stories about Dad fixing decks, helping with busted fences, never charging full price. That was him. About halfway through, I caught one of Dad's country club friends, Grant, watching me from the second row. He leaned toward Celeste and whispered something. She nodded, barely. After the service, Arturo pulled me aside. Will readings tomorrow at 1:30. Your father left specific instructions. Celeste slid in right on cue. Arturo, dear, we can handle it privately. He moved her hand off his sleeve without blinking. All parties must attend. Outside, Tessa murmured something about the estate, new pool cabana, tennis court, deliveries nonstop. She said Grant had been seen around a lot, and maybe mixed up with Celeste's sister. Arturo handed me an envelope. From your father. Open it alone. I walked to my car with it in my hand. Thick paper, his handwriting on the front. Behind me, Celeste's voice rang out, sugar sweet and sharp. Check your mailbox. I sent you something special. I dropped into the driver's seat, closed the door, and stared at the envelope. My gut twisted. Dad used to say, trust your gut, kid. Mine told me this wasn't grief. It was war. Grant walked off like I didn't exist. But that look? He knew exactly who he meant. And whoever she was, I'd bet everything it wasn't Celeste. Tessa stayed quiet as we stepped into the elevator in my building. She was holding the envelope like it might explode. Her phone buzzed again. More posts, more hints. Corinne's trying to show off, she muttered. She doesn't know we're watching. Back at my place, I locked the door behind us. I slit the envelope with my car key and slid out the card. Just 3 words in that careful handwriting. Trust the steps. I didn't know what that meant yet, but I would. The next day, Arturo's conference room felt colder than it should. Glass walls, perfect lines, everything in place. Celeste breezed in wearing a black designer dress that probably cost more than my mortgage, heels clicking like punctuation. I sat across from her, Tessa on my right. Arturo took his seat and adjusted his glasses with both hands like he was grounding himself. He started without small talk. "This is the last will and testament of Martin Gregory Pierce." Celeste folded her arms, ready to win. "To my wife, Celeste Pierce, I leave the contents of our joint account, approximately $310,000. Celeste blinked too fast. Her smile slipped at the edges. "That's incomplete." Arturo didn't blink. "To my son, Nolan Pierce, full ownership of Pierce and Son Developments, all remaining financial assets, and full control of the family estate." Celeste's chair screeched as she shot up. "He can't cut me out like this. I was his wife." Arturo slid a second page across the table. "There's an addendum, a governance clause, took effect 120 days ago. From that point forward, any estate or company transaction requires Nolan's written approval." Her skin went pale. "Backdated like that? That's illegal. He can't." "He did. As majority owner," Arturo said, calm as ever. "It's effective. And anything after that date without Nolan's sign-off is voidable." Grant finally spoke, his voice too casual. "There's room to negotiate." "There's also a sealed schedule regarding a concealed venture," Arturo added, turning to me. "Codename: Harbor Point." I leaned forward. "What is it?" "We'll disclose after a compliance review of all recent transactions. Your father flagged irregularities." Celeste's hand trembled as she sipped water. Tessa leaned in close and whispered, "All those upgrades, the new cars, every receipt needs your signature now." Celeste snapped, "I maintained Martin's lifestyle." "By buying half of Westlake," I muttered, picturing Dad's chipped mug and worn shirts. Arturo closed the folder. Meeting adjourned. He pulled out a small laptop, then looked up at me. "One more thing, a message from your father." The screen lit up. Dad's face filled the frame. He looked tired, but solid. His voice hit me like a gut punch. "Nolan, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Harbor Point has what you need. Arturo will help." He hesitated, then turned cold. "And Celeste? I know about Corinne." Celeste gasped. Grant shifted, his knee bouncing under the table. Tessa cut in. "Who's Corinne?" Celeste grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Arturo didn't flinch. He placed a USB on the table and slid it toward me. "Be careful. Your father expected resistance." Tessa checked her phone and showed me a new post. Corinne Archer flashing a champagne glass on a balcony tagged "New Financing." As we stepped out into the hallway, I heard Grant on a call. His voice dropped when he saw me, but two words stuck like glue. "She knows." We didn't talk on the drive back to my place. Tessa carried that USB like it was evidence and a weapon at the same time. As soon as the door shut, she plugged it into my laptop and started opening folders without asking. Financials came first. Lines of transfers jumped off the screen. Pierce and Son money sliding through a shell called CA Stratagem. Tessa leaned closer, jaw tightening. "That's not random," she said. "CA is Corinne Archer. She didn't even try to hide it." A hard knock hit the door. I checked the peephole and saw Grant, unshaven, eyes red, jacket wrinkled like he'd slept in it. I cracked the door with the chain still on. 5 minutes, he said, and it's about your dad. I didn't open it. "Say it fast." He glanced down the hall. "Be careful. Celeste isn't who you think she is. I was closer to your dad than she ever knew." "You were his friend," I said. "Or you were someone's errand boy." He dragged a hand through his hair. "Martin asked me to watch her. Harbor Point isn't just a development. Check the security footage. April 9th, your dad's office." Before I could ask anything else, He turned and walked fast toward a dark SUV parked across the street. Tessa already had the footage loading. A minute later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Gate log says my badge failed at 9:41. They stalled me on purpose. Tessa didn't look up. Bogus badge error, she said. That's how he was late. The video showed Dad's office after hours. Celeste walked in first, heels quiet on the floor. Corinne followed, face I'd seen online, smiling in beach photos. The sound kicked on as Celeste worked the safe. Corinne said, "Investors want answers on Harbor Point, Martin's shifting passwords and accounts." Celeste whispered, "Then we move faster. He won't block us again." "The deadline's coming," Corinne said. "They want the documents." Tessa paused the video. "That's 2 weeks before your dad's heart scare." My phone buzzed again. Arturo. "Found something? Come now." At his office, he spread papers across the desk, neat lines mapping company money through shells that all led back to CA Stratagem. "Your father suspected this months ago," he said. "That's why he started locking things down." "Harbor Point was supposed to be senior housing," Tessa said, reading fast. "They flipped it to luxury condos, padded invoices, kickbacks." Arturo nodded. "He started recording everything. That's when the pressure started." Celeste and Corinne appeared in the doorway like they owned the place. Their smiles were sharp and empty. "We need to align, Nolan," Celeste said. "Your father's wishes weren't simple." "They were clear," I said. "And I'm not signing anything." Corinne's voice cooled. "Stress is dangerous for a man with a weak heart." Arturo lifted his phone. "We're done here. Leave now." As they turned away, Celeste looked back. "Technology fails," she said. "Files rot. Don't get attached to digital ghosts." The door shut. Arturo called building security immediately. "They're nervous," he said. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. "No," I said. "That means they're moving." I handed the tablet to Tessa before I stepped out. "Upload the lab report, 3 backups." She nodded without looking up. "One of them's in Iceland." The estate looked different with Dad gone, colder, quieter. The porch light flickered once as I pulled into the driveway, like it knew I didn't belong here anymore. Celeste opened the door before I knocked, barefoot in a silk robe, holding a glass of champagne like she'd just wandered in from a photo shoot. "Come in, Nolan," she said, voice syrupy. Inside, the dining room looked staged. Candles, linen napkins, a row of Dad's favorite vintages lined up like bait. Corinne stood by the table arranging glasses, wearing black like it meant something. Neither of them looked like they'd lost anyone. "I didn't come to drink," I said, keeping my hands in my pockets. "Shame," Celeste said softly. "Your father always appreciated a good vintage with a complicated meal." "He was complicated," I said, "but he was honest. Tell me about CA Stratagem." Corinne's smile never left her mouth, but her eyes went sharp. "A consulting arm. Clean, efficient, perfectly legitimate. Like Harbor Point? The padded invoices, the kickbacks, the name bouncing through 5 shells?" I asked, taking a slow step toward the table. "That kind of legitimacy?" The room went still. Celeste's voice dropped just a notch. "Walk away, Nolan. You're not cut out for this war. Take a settlement. Start over." "Start over from what?" I said. "You think waving money at me is going to fix what you did to my dad?" Corinne stepped forward. "Markets break. Systems buckle. People disappear. It isn't personal." "No?" I stepped closer. "Did Dad make the mistake of telling you no?" Celeste's mouth twitched. Martin was ready to scrap years of planning, all that work undone because of ethics. He lost perspective. "He had perspective," I said. "You just didn't like it." Corinne leaned one hand on the table, voice steady. "This isn't just about you. Harbor Point has powerful backers." Men who don't like flashlights in the dark. Celeste pulled out a tablet and slid it across. The board has eyes. Maybe they'd enjoy seeing those grainy parking lot photos. You and that married adjunct from your wild 20s. I picked up the tablet, looked at the thumbnail, and laughed. Nothing happened, but thanks for confirming this dinner was a threat. I reached into my jacket and tapped the phone. A soft beep followed. Their faces changed fast. That audio's backed up, I said. 3 places, and the lab report, already in Arturo's hands. Get out, Celeste hissed. You have no idea who you're poking. I stepped back and grabbed the tablet on my way out. Pack your things. The will says the clock started 120 days ago. Tessa's car idled at the end of the drive. I slid into the passenger seat. She stared at me. Did you get them? I nodded, still feeling the tremble in my hands. Enough to wake people up. We're not finished. We met Grant at a quiet coffee shop near the river. The kind of place where nobody looks twice, if you sit too long. Tessa took a booth 2 rows back with her laptop open, pretending to work while she watched reflections in the glass. Grant didn't touch his coffee. The investors aren't just developers, he said. Harbor Point is their washing machine. And you know this how? I asked, keeping my voice low. He slid a thumb drive across the table. Your dad put me inside, asked me to watch and listen. He trusted me. Before I could respond, Arturo rushed in, breathing hard like he'd run the last block. We need to move here, he said. Someone broke into my office. I stood. What did they take? Nothing, Arturo said. They left a queen of hearts on my desk. Red paint slashed across it. Grant's face drained. That's their hello. At Tessa's apartment, we locked the door and pulled the blinds. She mirrored the drives while Grant walked us through the flows. Money jumped from Pierce and Son into Queens Ridge Holdings, then split into 4 more shells before vanishing offshore. Corinne's front, Grant said, but she's not the end of it. My phone buzzed. Burner address. A video loaded, showing Dad arguing with someone off camera. His voice was sharp. You can't take retirement funds from people who trusted us. Celeste's voice followed, smooth and cold. They'll get a return. Everyone wins. A man I didn't recognize? Cut in. Think of your son, Martin. Another email hit seconds later. Back off, or the next video shows how he died. They're bluffing, Tessa said, fingers flying over keys. Grant shook his head. They don't bluff. The window exploded inward with a crack that punched the air out of my chest. Glass scattered across the floor. Grant dove behind the table, swearing. Shoulder, he hissed, clutching it. Grazed. Arturo already had the police on the phone. Sirens started wailing somewhere close. My phone buzzed again. Address, warehouse on Dockmere, tomorrow, 3 p.m. Come alone. The cops showed up, took notes, looked around like they wished they were anywhere else. While cruisers idled outside, Arturo stepped aside and called a federal case officer he trusted. He asked for quiet eyes near the marina for the next 48 hours. There's a safety deposit box, Arturo said after. Your father authorized it. Inside, we found names, dates, account chains tying Queens Ridge to the same investors. Corinne Archer's signature sat at the bottom as chief financial officer. As we stepped into the hallway, my phone rang. Celeste. Did you enjoy the performance? She purred. Ask Grant about April 9th, your father begged. Grant stared at the floor. I was there. They froze my badge at the gate. I was late. I didn't stop it. I stepped closer. Then you help me now. Where's the rest? He swallowed hard. Martin wore a wire, the full recording. He hid it somewhere only he'd think to hide. Arturo said, Harbor Point? I shook my head and headed for the door. No, the real harbor. The marina. I pushed open the cabin hatch, heart pounding in my throat, and stepped onto the blue ember like I'd done 100 times with Dad. The boat rocked under my shoes, still familiar, like it had been waiting on us to finish what he started. I reached under the console and keyed in the 4-digit code he made me memorize when I was 15. The chart plotter chirped twice, trigger-armed. Backup plan live. Behind me, Tessa's voice dropped. 2 cars, black SUV, silver sedan. They just parked near the end of the dock. Let them, I said, stepping deeper inside. He knew they'd come. Arturo came down the walkway with a tight grip on a metal case. Cameras are looped for 20 minutes. After that, we vanish or we're caught. Inside, the cabin looked untouched. Worn bench cushions, Dad's old mariner cap still on its hook. But one floorboard near the helm didn't quite sit flush. Grant knelt beside it. He spent 3 straight Sundays here before he died, Grant said. Didn't let anyone on board. Arturo twisted the 3rd board loose and lifted a black waterproof case, the size of a shoebox. The lock popped with a soft click. Footsteps hit the dock in rhythm, like a countdown. I turned as Celeste stepped on board like she owned it, Corinne right behind her, both flanked by 4 men in dark jackets who fanned out fast and practiced. You're trespassing, I said. Celeste gave a lazy smile. Family property. Hand over the case, Nolan. Corinne's eyes swept the boat. Martin saw shadows, called them monsters, but he never proved it. He didn't have to, I said. You named yourselves. One of the men stepped in close, voice quiet but solid. You don't want to play this hand, son. My chest tightened, but I kept my voice even. April 9th, after hours, you told him to stop digging. Celeste's mask cracked just enough to show panic. You don't know what you're saying. Arturo raised his voice, cold and even. He confronted you about Harbor Point and the money. 3 days later, his heart stopped under suspicious conditions. The nearest man held out his hand. Give us the case, now. I pulled out my phone and hit play. Dad's voice filled the cabin speakers. If you're hearing this, I'm gone. Celeste and Corinne think they burned everything, but they missed the triggers. Every file and every recording sent to federal agents when Blue Ember's security code is entered. Celeste paled. You're bluffing. I turned my screen toward her. Outbox opened. Time-stamped 10 minutes ago. Auto sent to a federal financial crimes unit. Somewhere past the causeway, sirens screamed. 2 of the suits bolted. Black sedans slid into view behind them. Arturo's quiet contact coming through. Uniforms followed, lights flaring across the water. Corinne lunged. I stepped back. Tessa swung the gaff hook from behind the table and clipped Corinne's shoulder hard enough to drop her. Celeste came at me, slipping on the slick deck as red and blue lights hit her square. She hit hard and stayed down. Agents swarmed the boat, shouting, Hands where we can see them! I popped the latches on the case and lifted the lid. You wanted proof? I said, holding up the laptop and drives. Here it is. Corinne didn't look up. He was smarter than we thought, she said, her voice flat, eyes fixed on the floor as the zip ties clicked shut around her wrists. The courthouse felt tight and too bright when I took the stand, like the air had nowhere to go. Celeste sat at the defense table in County Orange, shoulders stiff, nails chewed down to nothing. She didn't look at me until I raised my right hand. State your name, the prosecutor said. Nolan Pierce, I answered, voice steady enough to surprise me. He nodded toward the evidence table. Can you identify evidence G? I looked at the laptop and the drives lined up in plastic sleeves. Those are my father's recordings and files related to the Harbor Point scheme. Celeste's attorney jumped up with an objection. The judge cut him off and waved him down. Overruled. Proceed. The courtroom went quiet as the April 9th audio played. Dad's voice came through the speakers, firm and tired, saying he wouldn't let them steal from retirees who trusted him. Celeste followed, calm and icy, saying everyone wins in the long run. Then a man I still didn't know leaned in and told Dad to think about his son. Another clip rolled. Dad said he was wearing a wire. He said accidents happen. He said he wasn't going to look the other way. The prosecutor turned to me. What happened after that meeting? I told them about the post-mortem toxicology. I explained how the substance mimicked an acute cardiac event, how it wouldn't show up without a deeper look. I said Dad died 3 days later. Corinne took the stand under a plea deal. She kept her eyes fixed on a mark on the wall, like it was the only thing holding her upright. It wasn't supposed to go that far, she said, hands shaking. The prosecutor leaned in. Who gave the order? She swallowed hard. Celeste did. She said Martin was a liability. The investors were nervous about the laundering. Celeste shot to her feet with a sound that wasn't a word. 2 deputies grabbed her before she could cross the aisle. The judge slammed the gavel and called a recess. In the hallway, Tessa hugged me quick and tight. You're doing fine, she said, pulling back before either of us could lose it. Arturo nodded toward Grant, still in a sling near the benches. The accounts are frozen, he said. The retirement funds will be returned. Back inside, the prosecutor pulled up a projector. Arrows traced money through Queens Ridge, California Stratagem, and 3 offshore accounts, all looping back to Celeste and Corinne. It looked clean and ugly at the same time. Total amount laundered? The prosecutor asked. $68.4 million, I said, reading straight from the summary Dad put together. Taken from pension pools and retirement funds tied to Harbor Point. The defense tried to paint Celeste as manipulated, as someone led around by investors and a reckless sister. The recording shut that down fast. You could hear intent in her voice. You could hear planning. The jury was gone less than 3 hours. Guilty of first-degree murder. Guilty of money laundering. Guilty of fraud. As deputies cuffed her, Celeste twisted toward me. You started a war you can't see, Nolan, she hissed. You made enemies you can't see. I didn't answer. I watched them lead her out. Outside, microphones came at me from every angle. What happens to Harbor Point now? Someone shouted. I stopped and faced them. We finish it exactly how my dad planned, I said. Affordable housing for seniors. Every dollar accounted for. I turned away from the cameras and walked down the courthouse steps, not slowing, not looking back, and got to work. A week later, I stood in Dad's old office surrounded by all the garbage Celeste left behind. Designer folders stuffed with forged loan forms, USB sticks disguised as lipstick tubes, a burner phone full of encrypted chat logs and half-cent threats, all boxed, labeled, tagged, and handed off to the feds. Except for what Arturo said we should keep, just in case. Look at this, Tessa called from the closet. She stepped out holding a dusty foam core model of Harbor Point, the original one. Raised garden plots, a small on-site clinic. Brick paths that looped instead of cutting straight through. Dad never liked shortcuts when it came to people. Before I could respond, the intercom buzzed. Mr. Pierce, the first residents are here to see the leasing office. I walked out to the front lobby and found an older couple, probably late 70s, standing hand in hand with thick paper applications clutched like something sacred. The man looked up at me with watery eyes. We heard the rumors, he said. But these rates, we can stay near our grandkids. That's the point, I told them, and I meant it. I led them through the common room, showed them the kitchen, the reading lounge, the paved walking paths that looped around the raised beds Dad insisted on. He said dirt could fix more than doctors. Out by the pergola, Arturo leaned against a post, sleeves rolled up, sun flickering through the slats behind him. Final returns hit this morning, he said. Every stolen dollar tracked and repaid to the harmed investors. I nodded. And Celeste's appeal? He didn't even blink. Denied. She'll serve the full sentence. No early anything. Back upstairs, Arturo stopped at Dad's bookshelf and tapped the back panel twice. A soft click followed. Then the whole section shifted an inch to the side. Hidden panel. I never knew it was there. Inside was a small gray safe, nothing flashy. Arturo stepped back and said, "Try your birthday." I did. The dial clicked. The latch gave. Inside was a velvet box and a folded letter. I took the letter first. Dad's handwriting hit hard. "Son, if you're reading this," you restored the balance. Harbor Point was never just buildings. It was bait. A pressure test. A line in the sand for anyone who thought legacy was just cash. He wrote about instincts, about knowing something felt wrong the day he first met Celeste, about how he laid the trap piece by piece when she started digging around in his contacts and records, and about how proud he was. I didn't flinch. I opened the box and stared. Mom's old pocket watch, silver, worn smooth at the edges. I hadn't seen it since I was 12. Inside, a photo of the three of us at the lake, Dad's arm around my shoulder. I looked like I didn't even know how good I had it. "Your real legacy isn't contracts or profits," he wrote. "It's the backbone to stand up when it counts." I sat at his old desk, held the watch in my palm, and waited for the second hand to steady. When it did, I finally exhaled and stood up. There was one more drive taped to the back wall of the safe, thin, matte black, like it had been waiting its turn. Arturo handed me his laptop, and I slid it into the port. The screen lit up. Dad appeared on camera. Sitting at his desk, in the same office where I'd just found his letter. Morning light cut across his face from the east windows. Time-stamped April 9th, 8:07 a.m. He looked tired, but focused. "Morning, kid," he said, leaning slightly toward the lens. "If this is on your screen, then the plan worked, and the truth did what it always does." He didn't blink. "I know they've been poisoning me. I tasted it 2 days ago. I could have stopped drinking the coffee, but the victims wouldn't get made whole without hard proof. So here it is." I felt my jaw clench. Tessa stood behind me, quiet. Arturo stepped back, giving the moment space. "Don't mourn long," Dad said. "Build what we talked about. Let the work stand." Harbor Point wasn't about money. It was about who's left holding the line when no one else will. The video ended clean, no fade out, just a sharp click. Grant came in from the hallway, still favoring his shoulder. "The feds want you to testify next month," he said. "Against the rest of the investors?" I nodded. "Tell them yes. We'll finish the list." Tessa set down the Harbor Point scale model on Dad's desk, right beside his old fisherman's cap and the pocket watch. All three lined up like little anchors, pieces of him that never cracked. That night, we drove out to Blue Ember with a duffel bag of tools and a punch list taped to the windshield. Fresh oil, battery check, new dock lines, scrub the hull, reset the clocks. The cabin smelled like salt and old varnish. I keyed the ignition, and the engine turned once, then settled into a clean hum. Steady. No skips, no hesitations. Outside, the marina was quiet. The water lapped slow against the posts, like it was listening. Arturo leaned on the rail, watching the sky go dark over the inlet. "He used to say the water remembers," he said. "He also said receipts matter more," I added. We both laughed, and it landed harder than it should have. My phone buzzed. No caller ID. One line of text. "Bad math never ends." I stared at it for a second, then took a photo of the federal receipt number Dad's system generated the day I keyed in the boat's code. I sent it back with a thumbs up. No words. Tessa looked over from the helm. "Revenge feel good?" I shook my head. This wasn't revenge. This was him teaching me one last time. We packed the gear, tightened the mooring, locked the cabin. Then we stepped off the Blue Ember and headed home, with nothing left to prove. The morning sun cut in across the Harbor Point courtyard as we unfolded chairs and set up a cheap podium someone borrowed from the rec center. Nothing fancy, just enough. The new sign read Harbor Point Gardens, Senior Living. Black letters on soft white, exactly like Dad sketched on a diner napkin one night when he couldn't sleep. That napkin stayed in his desk drawer for over a year, right up until the day he met Celeste. I wore the same navy suit from the funeral, but it didn't feel like armor anymore. It felt like mine. The first residents stood near the gate, holding hands, holding paperwork, holding in tears they probably didn't plan on. Couples. Widowers. One woman with a tiny dog in a red sweater that looked like it came from a craft fair. They smiled, like it was hard to trust that this was real. Arturo walked over and handed me a pair of oversized scissors. "One speech," he said. 30 seconds max. Tessa pinned the ribbon across the main path and stepped back fast, blinking hard but holding it together. I cleared my throat, glanced down at the mic, and thought of Dad in that last video. "Morning, kid." Like it was any other day. "We promised this would be honest and affordable," I said. We kept the promise. People clapped, not loud, not performative, just steady, like a heartbeat. Back inside Dad's office, I placed the pocket watch on the desk next to the Harbor Point model and his old cap. 3 pieces of him in the same spot, all pointing toward what came next. A maintenance guy brought in a taped-up box labeled Pierce. Personal. I opened it slow. Inside were the remains of Celeste's show. The lipstick drives, the fake sign-offs, the scorched phones. Evidence, but also memories. I kept one thing only. A photo of me and Dad at the lake. Fish we didn't catch. His arm around my 11-year-old shoulder like he already knew I'd need it later. My phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Just one message. "You didn't finish the math." I stared at it for a beat, then typed back, "Feds have the rest," and set the phone down. Screen face down. Tessa leaned through the doorway. "They're ready." I walked to the lobby where the first couple was signing their lease. The man smiled at his wife like he hadn't done it in a while. "Welcome to Harbor Point Gardens," I told them, and meant every word. In the courtyard, the garden beds were filled with clean, empty soil, rows of space waiting to grow something worth standing for. Tessa held out the scissors again. "Do the thing." I looked up at the sky, thought of Mom, thought of Dad, thought of every late night he stayed after I left, setting tripwires in silence. "Thanks, Dad," I said under my breath, and cut the ribbon. "One last thing before you head out. Can I ask you something? If someone you love handed you proof that doing the right thing would blow up your comfort, friends, money, even your calm, would you still push the button like I did at Harbor Point? If you've got hype, please tap it to boost this video so it reaches more people. Also, subscribe and hit like. It truly helps and takes just one click. And tell me in the comments, drop even a quick good story or share what you'd do. What value does this story bring to viewers? 1. Always ask for the governance clause. Martins gave Nolan full control of the estate and voided Celeste's last-minute spending, protecting the legacy from unauthorized transactions. 2. A sealed envelope from the deceased, plus a dated boardroom addendum, can override live manipulations, especially when paired with a clear compliance trigger. 3. Personal vigilance matters. Nolan checked the badge logs, subpoenaed gate footage, and used metadata to link CA stratagem to Corinne, making the fraud traceable and legally actionable. 4. Hidden backups and time-stamped auto-triggers, like the boat's code-linked upload, show how off-site redundancies can save a case when local files are sabotaged. 5. Medical events need follow-up. Martin's post-mortem toxicology revealed poison masked as cardiac failure, shifting the case from civil fraud to criminal homicide.